My name's Kirby Fry and I work with the Earth Repair Corps, and we're here at Jacob's Well Natural Area above Jacob's Well, which is down that way, and this ravine leads into Cypress Creek. And apparently a while back, years ago, someone came through here and trimmed up a lot of these cedar trees, which I think is a good management technique, and we've trimmed a little bit ourselves. But now we have all this deadfall to deal with, and that's also referred to as slash. And Earth Repair Corps advocates, teaches, implements sustainable design. We also call it permaculture, which is a design system for sustainable living. And one of the things that we're always trying to do is manage the soil and water on a slope or on a farm or a homestead, and you want to slow that water down. And so as the water is running off this hillside, if we just let it go, it begins to create erosion. And so this ravine is partly created from humans mismanaging the land. Of course, the ravine is a natural feature, but when humans come in and introduce livestock or plowing and burning and things like that, it accelerates erosion. So one of our management strategies for mitigating erosion is we use the laser level, which is shown in the distance there, to find contour lines. And so these are lines that are level. So say for instance you dug a ditch on one of these yellow flagged lines and fill that ditch up with water. That water would fill up evenly across the ditch. And they believe that that may be how the Egyptians leveled the pyramids, was they dug and created canals around the base of the pyramid, flooded it with water, and used that water level to find the cornerstones of the pyramids. So by laying this slash or this brush on contour, we're trying to get the wood to touch the ground as much as possible, so that when the water is sheet flowing off the hillside, it's going to run into that wood, and that wood is going to slow it down, and any sediment or leaf litter that was being washed off the property is now going to get trapped behind the logs. And you always want to start at the top of a system, because that's where the problem begins. If you jump in and intervene at the bottom of a hill or a ravine like this, you're going to have a lot more water. I mean, there's so much force down there, that water's moving rocks that are about 1 or 2 feet in diameter. So we want to address the problem as high up in the system as possible, so that our stuff doesn't get blown out or washed away. And so generally you start up at the top, and then about every 30 feet, or depending on how much material you have, you'd be laying out what we call dead barriers, brush barriers on contour. And sometimes, in some cases, you can slightly tilt them downhill to make the water go a particular direction, if that's the goal. Like where that path forks over there, I can tell that they directed the water away from one path and sent the water in a different direction by tilting the brush barriers downhill.
So I've noticed that it seems like you all aren't just throwing down the material around. It actually seems like beautiful when I look at it down the trail. Why is that?
Well, a couple of reasons. I mean, I'm not much of an artist, but when you lay things out on contour, it really begins to show you the shape of the topography, and so you end up with a lot of really nice curves. And then as we build these brush barriers, you want to put the heavy stuff down first, and you want it to have as much contact as possible with the soil. And then one of the crew leaders, Maddie, he even started weaving the heavier stuff together. And so there's some of the brush barriers where Maddie's been working, that they really start to take on an artistic form. And then we come in with the smaller stuff and we lodge that into the bigger stuff. And so here we're building these brush barriers above the flags, so the heavy stuff goes down first, gets butted in together, gets woven in together, and then the smaller stuff gets woven in above that.
And do you think there's a place for art in restoration work and sustainability?
Oh, I think there should be. I mean, it's just like in any landscape. You want to give humans a place to slow down, have something to look at, possibly a place to sit, and then the process of design is also really simply a process of elimination. Like, there's one little spot over here where the path bows in and then the brush barrier bows out. And to me, that's like a perfect spot for a art exhibit or a bench. And so these special areas just begin to jump out at you. And often it takes 2 or 3 days of stomping up and down this hillside to find these spots, but you want to keep an eye out for them. And I know that David Baker is particularly fond of art, and you know, we want to do things that are beautiful and aesthetically pleasing so that people will want to copy them. So it's almost like bait. So it's like you want to make it photo worthy. You want someone to look at it and go, what is that? And then study it. And I worked with an architect, and he always said you want people to want to walk up to it and touch it. So you want smooth, friendly surfaces. You don't want sharp rocks and sharp sticks poking at you. You want to invite people in, and especially in a natural area like this. Another buddy of mine said, well, you got to give them their strip of grass. And what he meant is like the path or a cleared area at the edge of the cliff or at the entryway into the woods. And that's just lures people into that natural space, because if it's just a bunch of deadfall and juniper trees totally blocking you, people aren't going to be tempted to walk into this system and study it more closely.
Thank you, Kirby.
Yeah,
that was great. Yeah.